Namaste. Over the last few weeks, we have been looking at ways in which we can develop a more healthy mindset, particularly as we started this year in Scotland, going back into lockdown, and that really has knocked quite a few people for six. So we've worked with various things over the last few weeks, and this week we're examining the things that we say to ourselves, our self-talk. And so the first thing I'd like you to think about is something that you say to yourself that isn't at all helpful, that is perhaps even so unkind that you wouldn't say it to anyone else, wouldn't say it to a stranger, wouldn't say it to a friend. They're usually phrases that start with things like I can't, I don't, I'm not good enough for. So have a think about that just as you're sitting, thinking about a thing that you often hear in your mind. It's a little bit like the angel and the devil in our minds. We've got on one side our inner cheerleader who's always saying, you can do this if you just try a little bit harder. And on the other side, the one that's going, you'll never be any good at this. Why do you even try? And so what we're trying to do is shift the balance of conversation away from that inner critic, that inner, I want to say inner bitch, actually, the inner bitch. Yeah, why not? To the inner cheerleader, the person within you who is strong enough to do it, who is courageous enough, who will get better if they try. And the person who has that boundless enthusiasm. So we've all got both of those within us. We're just trying to change the conversation from one side to the other. So this week, your homework is to come up with a phrase to combat the inner critic. So if, for example, the inner critic says something like, you'll never be good at that, I don't know why you're trying, then you need to combat, you need to immediately meet that thought, or try to immediately meet that thought with, I can do this, I can do this, it doesn't need to be perfect first time, I can do this if I try, I'll get better if I practice, any of those sorts of phrases. So the more that we do this, the more effective it is. So the more often we meet our criticism with support, the more frequently we notice that criticism, and then we change the balance, we just shift the balance towards a much more supportive mindset, a much more supportive inner voice. And so I've come up with 5 statements here. I didn't come up with them myself. I researched 5 statements here. And there are 5 critical statements and 5 supportive and loving statements. So see if some of your thoughts resonate with some of these critical statements. I am unworthy. I am unlovable. I don't belong. I am defective. I am powerless. So probably all of us can think of a time in our lives when we've thought one of those, or a combination, or even all of those. So let's see if we can change the conversation in our heads to, I am deserving. I am loved. I am brave. I am capable. I am strong. I am enough. So please have a go. Remember that a little committed practice with these sorts of mental activities really does help And we're never going to be able to go from having perhaps an inner critic who's very vocal to having an inner supporter who's very vocal. It's a process of transference of that balance of power. But the more often we recognize those critical thoughts as they come up, the more often we'll be able to put up a supportive thought in place and just knock the critical thoughts out to the side. And another good rule of thumb is to think about if you would say it to someone else. If you wouldn't say it to someone else, it's not kind enough to say to yourself either. And perhaps this will also make us a little kinder to other people, a little bit more tolerant, a little bit more patient and compassionate too. Remember that other people have got their inner critic switched on. So if you notice somebody is listening to their inner critic a lot, perhaps you can share this exercise with them too. Please comment or send me some feedback, and I will wish you all a very, very good week, and I hope that you develop your inner cheerleader to be super strong in short measure. Namaste.